As much as modern-day conservatives, Andrea Mitchell, may take that sentence from his inaugural as gospel and run on that in their own debates with President Obama and in Washington today, indeed, Reagan was much more of a pragmatist than he was an ideologue when it came to the major issues.
Absolutely.
Taxes, Social Security, and the like.
I mean, he said, this is the sound you hear around my feet. It's the concrete breaking around my feet, whatever the exact words were. People are trying, Republicans in particular, obviously, trying to appropriate Ronald Reagan for their own political purposes now. But his vision and his ability to work across party lines was so far broader. He stuck to his principles. He was authentic, which is, I think, one of the reasons why he's so admired after all of these years. But he knew when he needed to compromise, and he did. And he reached out with Democrats, not just the boll weevils who were the conservative Texas Democrats, but with Tip O'Neill and liberal Massachusetts Democrats as well, when he needed to get something done. And with the help, the guidance of people like Jim Baker, but the genius of it all was that Ed Meese was there. There were conservatives there, and Jim Baker, more moderate Republicans, and it was a bit messy at times, but he had a range of views, and Nancy Reagan bringing even more people into play.
Would he think the Tea Party was up?
Whoa. Republicans are not, I think, trying to appropriate Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was a Republican. Conservatives aren't trying to appropriate him. He was a conservative. Willie, he became a public figure in America 2 years before he was governor, in 1964, and he laid out a speech as stern, if not sterner, in its conservatism, in which he explained his views on taxes, cut them, his views on the size of government, too big, too bullying, his views on the Soviet Union, hold it back, it is expansionist. This was all very clear. As a president, as a governor, he was pragmatic in his operations.
Some of the candidates and the Sarah Palin quotes. I'm talking about one wing of the party.
You mean some people are trying to claim him as a
Exactly.
mantle?
Right. But James Baker, what would Ronald Reagan make of the Tea Party movement within the Republican Party
He
today?
wouldn't have any problem with it. The Republican Party was divided actually when he came upon the scene and when he won, and during the 2 terms of his presidency. But one thing that we ought to note here, since we're here on his 100th birthday, Ronald Reagan practiced bipartisanship. He understood that we judge our presidents on how successful they are in getting their programs through the Congress. And I remember so many times I'd be sitting there in the Oval with him, and we'd be debating whether we were going to make a particular agreement with the Democratic House, for instance. He'd say, Jim, I'd rather get 80% of what I want than go over the cliff with my flag flying. He said it all the time. So he knew when to hold them, he knew when to fold them. He was an extraordinarily fine negotiator. He'd learned all that as head of the Screen Actors Guild.
All right.